Puppy refuses to leave his sister's side for one heartbreaking condition. A dark past and a murky future were all that a small litter of puppies in Louisiana knew. And for one member of the litter, being rescued wasn't the miracle it should have been. That's because she was different from her brothers and sisters in a way that no one knew about yet. Though her siblings looked forward to their adoptions, her future wasn't as certain. All she had were her paws, a strong sense of smell, and an extra special ally. Rural Louisiana wasn't the greatest place for a litter of puppies to be, not because there was a lack of loving homes, but because an abandoned litter of 8 tiny white puppies and their exhausted mother could end up being stranded for days, with barely any hope of being found in the more isolated areas. No one knew how long this particular canine family had been abandoned, just that the pups were around 3 months old when they were finally rescued by a Good Samaritan in 2020. That stranger happily took in the mother, but the puppies were a different story. Their journey was just getting started. The 8 siblings and 31 other puppies journeyed 1,900 miles to Helen Woodward Animal Shelter in Santa Fe, California. After such a long trip, which must have been scary for the young pups, unaccustomed as they were to any form of travel, the puppies were finally able to stretch their legs at the shelter, 2 of them in particular. "You wouldn't know it right away when you see them playing. They're typical pups," said a staff member at Helen Woodward Animal Center. It's true that 2 of the little white pups seemed normal from a distance. One of them, however, stood out. She'd experienced a much different journey to California than the others. As nervous as the other pups had been on the long trip, imagine how much scary it would be if you couldn't see or hear anything that was going on. The staff members examined the little puppy and realized that this was her reality. She was deaf and partially blind. The trauma the poor puppy had experienced in her young life, being abandoned, rescued, then sent hundreds of miles away from anything familiar, had all happened while she was enveloped in darkness and silence. The staff expected her to be timid, maybe even unable to socialize with other dogs at all. So imagine their surprise when suddenly the dog's ears perked up. In a matter of seconds, the once timid pup leapt up and started jumping around with excitement. What exactly had turned this dog's frown upside down? Well, it's something that anyone with siblings would understand. The pup's brother had bounded to her side, nudging her in the right direction while playing with her. The staff watched in awe as Star and Denver, the names of the sister and brother respectively, became pretty much inseparable. Of course, the pups aren't joined at the hip, and Denver can't be by Star's side at all times. You can imagine how alarming it must be for Star when she finds herself alone in a room with Denver nowhere to be found. It's so important for young puppies, especially those with special needs, to explore their surroundings. Thankfully, Denver, ever the loyal brother, is never out of reach for long. Even if they're only separated for a few minutes, he always makes sure to nudge Star when he returns so she knows he's there and that she's not alone. In this way, Denver has become Star's eyes and ears. He plays fairly with her, never using his sight or hearing to his advantage while they're wrestling. Denver's become Star's very own guide dog, helping her navigate unfamiliar territory and socialize with other dogs. Of course, there are some things Star must do on her own. Since she can still smell and touch things, Star has become adept at finding food and has learned how to familiarize herself with new places and people in her own special ways. Jackie Kelleher of Helen Woodward Animal Center explained how Star gets used to a new location. When she moves to a new location, she moves very slowly, putting one paw out cautiously in front of the other, and she maps out the area around her, Jackie explains. Even with this learned skill, there are times when Star finds herself alone in tough situations. But whenever this happens, she knows exactly what to do. Star can also smell Denver, and if she's lost, she'll move around the room until she runs into him, Jackie said. Though most siblings, humans and otherwise, often bicker their way through childhood, the same can't be said for Star and Denver. When Star seems lost, Denver will run over to her and check in with her, Jackie explained. According to Jackie, their antics have only become wilder recently. They like to play with each other, play tumble, play with rope toys, and chew on stuffed toys, she said. Even though the staff at Helen Woodward Animal Center had fallen in love with the siblings, they knew that the pups really need a forever home. Problem was, many families weren't willing to take in one rambunctious dog, let alone two. Add in a puppy with unique, not to mention expensive, special needs, and a double adoption was a tall order. Separating Star and Denver, however, would be nearly impossible. You see, though Denver functions as Star's loyal guide, their relationship isn't a one-way street. Denver needs Star just as much as Star needs Denver. They are brother and sister after all, and splitting them up would be downright cruel. In a perfect world, Star and Denver would find a forever home with children to play with. I think that them being siblings definitely is something that, for a family with kids, would teach them how to be closer siblings because they have to help each other out. One relies on the other, said a staff member at the center. Still, the fear of having to split them up was real among the staff of Helen Woodward Animal Center. That is, until they actually put the two dogs up for adoption. Instead of receiving 0 applications, the center had too many to count. People from all over were touched by Star and Denver's story. Determined to find the perfect home for the inseparable sibling, the staff vetted each applicant. Whoever adopted Star and Denver had to have lots of room for the dogs to play and explore, and they had to be able to provide for Star's special needs. That's when the animal heroes came across the application of Sherry and Art Armendariz. Sherry and Art were calm, caring, and patient dog lovers, just what Star and Denver needed after a rocky start to their lives. Best of all, they were more than happy to take in both pups. That said, enthusiasm alone can't pay for dog food or health care, or even the cost of the adoption. Luckily, the Armendarizes had some help. An anonymous donor heard their story and the story of Star and Denver and generously covered the cost of the adoption. And Blue Buffalo Pet Food, not to be outdone, provided Sherry, Art, Star, and Denver with a whole year's supply of dog chow. Denver and Star's new parents were even given special training from Rob Cootie of San Diego Pet Training so that they could learn how to make Star's life and Denver's life as her guide a little easier. Even with all these changes, there's one thing about Star and Denver that will never change. Denver will always be vigilant of Star's needs, even while they're around humans, Jackie Kelleher said of the puppy siblings. Though Star's disabilities can make it difficult for her to warm up to people, Denver always has her back. Without him, it's possible that Star could have ended up like a cat named Rumble. Please share this with your friends and family.